Hello friends, welcome to the first session on outcome-based education, which forms a reference for different accreditation processes, NBA or NAAC. In this session, we'll be understanding what exactly outcome-based education means, its concept, its approaches, what is the need for OBE, which is abbreviated for outcome-based education, what all different phases of outcome-based education. And we also will try to understand what all outcome definition, what do you mean by that term, and what is outcome definition. Let us start with understanding the outcome. Actually, outcome is the things will turn out. That is what the way how we think. As far as students are concerned, could be the net result, end result. Now, when you think of any education environment, specifically higher education, the end result of professional or higher education is generally considered as one of the outcome. So what exactly it is seen as? Generally it is seen as students of any institute maybe get placed through on-campus placement. It could be through off-campus placement. Students are entering into the higher education once they complete the graduation program. Some of the students will become entrepreneur. So these are what expected kind of outcomes. Though we talk these representative types of outcome, but the transformation which is happening, it is happening with students in terms of the level of knowledge that they are actually carrying with them, the ability and skill sets and competencies that they have acquired, they work with. Further, they are also being seen in terms of changed behavior and the attitude. So these are generally seen as outcome which are implicit, but explicit what we could see is all these placements and higher studies and entrepreneurial startups. Right? So these transformations require some frameworks. As I talked about the transformations, if it should happen smoothly, we need some standardization, some standard process to be followed, and for which there are standards available. Whenever we talk about the standard, generally ISO, International Organization for Standards, comes in our mind. So there is ISO, which is also guiding to develop standard procedures, standard system to happen this transformation what I just talked about. Now, such standards are also available for education, specifically higher education. Now, we could see at this point of time across the globe, there are total 7 accords, 7 such bodies which are continuously working on developing such standards. We could call them as standard guidelines. Those guidelines are helping nations, helping institutes to develop their framework, to come up with some standard procedures. And being an Indian in India is becoming one of the signatory of such accord. That accord is Washington Accord, and the standard developed is ABET, which is abbreviated for Accreditation Body for Engineering and Technology. This is an international kind of accreditation agreement, which is we refer here in India as Accord. And in India, we have National Board of Accreditation, a national level body, which is in line, which is working in line with this Washington Accord recommendations. And in line with that, many professional higher education institutions are developing their outcome-based education standards, their systems. So at program level standards, if we talk about the guidelines given by this NBA, which is in line with ABET, could form a reference to develop these systems and processes. At an institute level, in India we have NAAC is another body which is giving a framework for developing a standard system and processes. So this accords actually recommends that graduates of program from signatory bodies to be recognized by other bodies and having met an academic requirements for entry to the practice of engineering in their area of jurisdictions. So these are basic requirements, so for which we need to develop the standards as well. If you see such like India, there are many other countries which are forming a part of this Washington Accord, and we are being one of that. Now, what is the effect? The effect of adopting such kind of a standards could be standardizing education in higher education. For example, one of the higher education domain could be engineering education domain. So such frameworks are available, and we need to understand that. To understand that framework in detail, we need to understand the concept of OBE that we need to focus upon. So as I said, the country that wants to be signatory member of Washington Accord, they need to implement OBE. That is what one of the in simple term, it could be statutory requirements. What are the major advantages that we can see as far as Washington Accord adoption? The international recognition that we'll get, our students being qualified, getting degree, get international level of recognition. International mobility for learners or graduates will be very, very comfortable. Their credits, their certificates will be very much valid in these areas. So to enjoy these benefits, we being Indian should always be a part of this Washington Accord, and we are working for that. And our attempt here is to make every institution aware about this concept and recommending, promoting, training institutes how to build this outcome-based education. As I'm talking about need of OBE, so it actually depends on how your program can adopt these concepts. As without adopting OBE, this accreditation is not possible. So it is generally said abroad, and now it has also started gaining importance here in India. No OBE, so there is no accreditation. So I can refer the quote by a book of 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. They specifically mentioned always keep end in mind. Why I'm referring here? Because that's a principle which is referred for developing outcome-based education concept. That is very, very important. We are talking about need of OBE. We have another perspective to understand this. There's a shift of international disclosures from education to lifelong learning, from education as a transformation of an expert knowledge to education as a building learner competencies, which includes learner to learn. So that's a very, very important concept. Now, the need for this OBE implementation, in short, we can understand point-wise if we take. To remain competitive at global world, that's a need. The second could be to remain as permanent signatory of one of the accord across the globe, like Washington Accord for India here. Third could be your institution should get some recognition as accredited institution, so that you can communicate, you can hold a position among all stakeholders, maybe internal and external. So you need accreditation. That's the third kind of a reason I can quote here. to adopt educational framework that helps in building learner competencies and to make students lifelong learner. That's one of the major reasons why we want to implement outcome-based education. The last but not the least, but I'm just quoting it here to summarize, to equip students with the required knowledge and skill set by whatever the things expected as 21st century skill set, for example, from maybe recruiters, maybe higher education institutions demands that a prerequisite. Maybe it also looked at a requirement as to become entrepreneurs. So these I'm just summarizing as reasons for need to implement outcome-based education, and such education framework could enable us to implement this. So it starts with very basic concept. For every education process, system, institution have some purpose so that it is in existence. When we say institution, then there are many programs under that. So every program has got their own objectives and purpose. Whether those purposes, objectives are fulfilled or not, how to ensure? Again, I'm coming back to outcome-based education, which help us to ensure. So, OBE is student-centric curriculum design and instruction model, which focuses on what students are actually do after they've been taught, once they'll complete their learning. So it is generally said in OBE environment, OBE shifts focus in education from teaching to learning. This is very, very important transformation. I'm just giving you one type of framework as an example in front of you. Here, this is an element approach I'm considering to explain the different approaches. I'm just referring here OBE framework with element perspective, element approach. If you see, the left-hand side is a box where all stakeholders are being collected. These stakeholders can be categorized like internal and external. Internal could be student, faculty, resources, management. So all those entities which are forming a part of internal portion of your education institute is internal stakeholder. What about external stakeholders? Recruiters, alumni, parents in particular, and the whole society in general could be treated as the external stakeholders. And what is their importance in this OBE? This is one of the very important element in OBE framework because they are giving inputs. Why that education institute should be there, what all those programs in the institute should be running. So they are giving inputs. So I'm treating that as one of the very first important element of outcome-based education framework. The second framework element is all outcomes, all outcome definitions. I'm just mentioning here, you could see next to the first left-hand side box. The second box is specifically focusing on the second element is outcomes, which is at different level, institute level, program level, course level. Institute level, it could be institute vision, mission statements. These are forming a base for the institute, which is one of the very important element of OBE. For program, which is represented word for departments. So for all programs, program level outcome, maybe program specific outcome, these are next type of internal elements for OBE framework. Then we develop a curriculum, and that curriculum is helping us to define course level outcomes. So for every course, there are many topics, then it drilled down to topic level outcomes. So outcome is an envelope which is one of the very important element of the outcome-based education framework, which is I am representing here. Next element of any education framework, we want to build it for OBE, could be the element which is or where the content delivery is happening. The content delivery is happening in the class, in the labs, expert session from the experts coming to the institutes, maybe on the field where students are learning. So all those learning instances, the resources, the processes, I'm calling them as one of the very important element of outcome-based education. Next is the process, the element which is focusing on assessment. It could be the course level assessment, then program level assessment, and then assessment happening at institute level. All these assessments are giving input to evaluate the performances of all programs, how they are performing. And that is also one of the very important input going back to the element where we have written all the outcome statements. And again, this cycle goes on and on. I will be talking about this in process approach. This is element approach, what I just explained. Now, let us go to the next. This is what I'm showing you, a framework given by one of the accreditation body. Here in India, it's a national level body, National Board of Accreditation. They're given this framework for affiliated mode institutes and autonomous institutes. Autonomous institutes, they treat them as tier 1, and non-autonomous affiliated mode institutes, they're treating it as a tier 2 institutions. So they are giving such frameworks in terms of 10 criterias institute need to fulfill in terms of developing the resources, in terms of developing the processes. They need to work on the process, they need to keep all the documents as which is advocating that they are following this outcome-based education. So this is one way how you can look at it as a standard system development approach offered by this institution, these bodies like National Board of Accreditation, which is at program level, department level. Similarly, such frameworks are also available at institute, called as NAAC is one another body in India, which is referring such kind of a framework offering to the institutes, and institutes follows that, and it is happening at the institute level. The evaluation is also happening through visits, evaluation of the reports and visits, and for every those functional areas, those program and institute level criteria are evaluated against the marks, and then institute will get some accreditation levels. So those status are student institute can enjoy to communicate, to assure, to communicate that they are assuring the quality. So this is what I'm just referring here as a standardization approach for developing outcome-based education. So if you look at what we have discussed, outcome-based education is actually shifting the focus from teaching-centric to learner-centric. So it addresses majorly these three questions. What? The first is what you want students to learn. That is focused. That's point number 1 or question number 1. Second question, what you want students to learn. And the third is how you can best help student to learn it. So these are the major 3 issues actually are catered and the system is developed. So the outcome-based education philosophy majorly focusing on, rather I am saying guiding them for designing curriculum, designing teaching and learning process, related systems, designing assessment systems. I'm showing you now the third approach of OBE framework. That is process approach. The elements remain same. How the process is happening, I'm just explaining here. Now, you could see there is the first box, which is nothing but, as I mentioned, the first element in element approach is all stakeholders. Maybe at department level, you can develop different bodies or committees. You can form committees. I'm just referring here a department advisory board or department advisory committee. What do you call? National Board of Accreditation recommends a term called as Department Advisory Board, which is abbreviated as DAB. They are responsible for giving inputs. Those inputs can be referred to define PEO, which is abbreviated for Program Educational Objectives. Here, that is the only one term, objective, which is represented for O. Otherwise, in everywhere, whatever O is used, which is abbreviated for outcome. This PO is telling you why that program should be in existence. Then, National Board of Accreditation has recommended 12 attributes for any graduate which is graduating from the program. Those we refer here as a program outcomes. Those program outcomes, if you study carefully, those are nothing but guidelines given by Abbott from Washington Accord as graduate attributes. Those are 12 graduate attributes we are referring here in India in line with guidelines from NBA as 12 POs, abbreviated program outcomes. Apart from these 12, any specific abilities a particular department or program have, they can also exhibit that they expect students to work on and develop their knowledge, abilities, skill sets, behavior, attitude, etc. We can still write 2 more addition to those 12 kind of outcomes at program level called as program specific outcome. We'll be discussing these program outcomes, how to read them, how to make use of them effectively, maybe in some other session. How to write those program specific outcomes we also will discuss in detail maybe in other sessions. Here we're understanding these are process elements which we are taking care of. The next, once we have defined PSOs and POs defined by NBA, we read it properly and take its proper meaning for our program. We can define the curriculum, we can define course outcome. While doing that, it is expected simultaneously you are also working on how you are designing your the next portion of process in OBE, that is content delivery. That may be happening, maybe curricular activities, it could be co-curricular activities, it could be extracurricular activities. So you need to design that. It is expected you also need to design the process for how you're going to assess what all instances you will going to take, or semester wise or academic year wise you will going to evaluate students' performances, how you can give those feedbacks to students. That also need to be defined. So this is coming under the process approach. Those assessments, as I mentioned earlier as well, will go into the process of evaluation of the performances at program level. Those are also giving some inputs. While these things are happening, which is very systematic way, like you're conducting examinations, you're also collecting some surveys from current students, you're also collecting surveys from maybe alumni, maybe recruiters and everything about what you are doing right now, how the things been delivered to students. Now they can come interact with students, they understand what students are right now at the level, and they give their feedbacks through surveys. Those are also giving in kind of inputs to your content design. Those modifications required at program level. Those inputs again from institute goes back to the program, and the continual improvement is happening. I'm talking about that in different phases. Now, Whatever the process approach I have shown, I explained, need to be divided into 4 phases. As far as my understanding goes, I divided into 4 phases to make you understand very easily. The first phase, as I said, content design phase, for which we are getting inputs from different statutory bodies like AICTE, DTE, the university where your institution is affiliated, they are also giving you guidelines. Recently, NEP implementation is happening, they are also giving you guidelines. So there are expectations. That is one point of input. As I just mentioned, all those surveys that you're collecting, those are also becoming a part of inputs for your content design. Those feedbacks from stakeholders you need to collect. As I mentioned, from internal stakeholder and external stakeholder, you need to collect those feedbacks. You sit together in the program. There must be a committee which is working on it at program level. You also look at what earlier results are. Those are also giving you inputs, because for a particular subject, a course, how students are performing, what level of quality of students entering into your institution, into your program specifically, how they are responding, how they are behaving for your course or for a particular course. That also is an input, so that you can rework on the content to be delivered. Either you can work on content, or even you can work on the pedagogy to be adopted for content delivery, pedagogy to be adopted for evaluation, assessment process or evaluation process. So these all are very, very important process elements that you need to understand, which is happening in this particular first phase that I'm just calling it as a first phase of OBE process. So what is the outcome of this? Structured syllabus is curriculum structure and the syllabus. This is what the basic outcome of this particular phase. The second phase is content delivery. The content delivery consisting of so many different activities that a particular faculty for a course, maybe a program in general, is working. For example, I'm just mentioning here, the content delivery is happening in the theory, maybe lab sessions. You are adopting different pedagogies for that. You may call expert sessions. You may carry students for industrial visits, maybe field work. All these are part of content delivery pedagogies. So seminars, projects on which students are working, maybe course level projects, minor projects, major projects, different categories. Value-added workshops that you arrange for or design for your students a particular semester. Maybe you're also designing a forum for students to discuss on. You're preparing a learning material where students are referring some learning material, they are working on it, they are giving you feedbacks. That is a learning instance. So that is there also content delivery is happening. You're collecting students' feedback. You're also working and replying back to students. You're responding properly. You're taking surveys on the courses, maybe mid-course survey, end-course survey. All these things are happening. You're also working on earlier result analysis. All these are also parcel of content delivery phase of outcome-based education, as far as my understanding goes, and you also will agree upon. The third phase, what I'm calling here as performance evaluation phase. Now, performance evaluation may be happening in different mode. We refer written mode, oral mode, practical conduction mode, maybe integrated mode of. So maybe in written mode you conduct different examinations, maybe class tests, in-semester tests. It could be cumulative internal evaluation, could be happening throughout the semester for courses. It may be quizzes, it may be objective tests, it may be class tests, it may be home assignments, whatever. Oral mode, you are conducting viva, you are asking students to present, you are asking students to summarize, you are asking students to give talk to your batch. So all these are examples. You're also asking students to work. That is the next mode, that is practical mode, where students are supposed to work in a lab and they need to perform and they need to exhibit, show their results to their teachers, and the evaluation happens there. Or the combination of all these three could also be a part of, it could be called as integrated mode of evaluation. Now, such evaluations are happening. During these evaluations, you can even involve some external evaluator, maybe expert from industry, maybe expert from academia of same repute, can be a part of that assessment process, and you evaluate students' performances. Now, all these students' performances helping you to understand who is slow learner, who is fast learner, how much amount of efforts you need to keep on slow learners, how you can make use of fast learners to help slow learners as well. So all these are different strategies, pedagogies you can adopt. So these assessments are helping for next phase called as fourth phase. I'm calling it as a fourth phase for compare evaluations. So in this phase, comparison and evaluation is happening. Now the evaluation is happening at two levels in program. One is at particular course or subject, a teacher is teaching a particular course, how students are responding. Assessment is telling faculty to maybe changing the pedagogy for content delivery or assessment method, or there is a need to rework on course level outcome. So there is a need. There is also a need for working on change in course level outcome. If you are changing, newer and newer subjects are entering into the academics, so the prerequisites are changing. So as there is a change in prerequisite, there is a need to work on the course level outcome. And such maybe 40 odd courses in 4 years program. So such course level outcomes changing is also helping to revise, rework on maybe program level outcomes. So this is a comparison and evaluation phase, which is the fourth phase, what I'm talking about. So I'm trying to make you understand how we are shifting. We are shifting from, as I mentioned, from teacher-centric to learner-centric. But it is happening in these phases. These are 4 phases. And the processes that we need to shift our focus upon is, first is outcome-based education. You understand this. In the next part of your understanding, you can work on how you could develop the outcome-based curriculum. Once you understood, it is generally expected you also need to work on further 2 steps, that is outcome-based teaching learning and outcome-based assessment. But these 2 may be happening simultaneously when you design your curriculum, or if you are expert enough, you can do it later. So I'm just showing you here, it's a waterfall model, but step after the step. But after the second step of curriculum, it is, as far as my understanding goes, teaching learning pedagogies and assessment pedagogies should happen for its designing at the stage where you are designing your curriculum. I'm now showing you a pyramid, which I'm calling here as an outcome pyramid. Here at the top, institute level vision, mission statements, quality policies, goal of the institute, all these are summarized, maybe in the form of a vision statement or a mission statements. Then those are forming a reference for vision and mission of the program, that is department. There we can design the program educational objectives. Further, at the program level, as I said, NBA recommendations, program level outcome statements we can directly adopt, and we need to write program specific outcomes. Those are forming a reference or a base for defining your structure for a program. and course level outcomes you need to define. So if you see, I'm defining these course outcomes right from top to bottom. So whenever you're defining outcome, it is top to bottom approach. And when you start evaluating whether outcomes are met, outcomes are attained, then the approach has to be from bottom to top. So assessment is happening at the course level, and the data collected will be used further to evaluate at program level, and then all such program level performances, institute level evaluation is happening. So I'm calling it as a outcome pyramid, which is helping you to understand this concept of OBE. Now I'm showing you all these outcomes and what is the time frame when you can change, you can think on changing, revising those statements. Let us start from bottom. The topic level outcome and course level outcome, you can think of revising if it is in need of course. If it is in need of, as we are considered two basic reasons. One, students' responses could be a reference or a reason. Second, if the prerequisite is been changed, then these are the major two reasons when you think about changing your topic level outcomes and the course level outcomes. So it is generally happening at the end of the semester. Then program level POs are recommended by NBA, so we are not working on it, but how to make use of that you can work on. There could be change there. And program specific outcome, you can think of revising once a batch which is entered into the first year, and then the last year that batch is moving out, you can take the performance of that, and then graduation, upon their graduation, you can think of reworking on POs and PSOs as well. But I'm giving one note here. You can think of revising PSOs if you get any specific addition to your program, any specific input that you are getting from stakeholders, then also you can think of changing, revising. As far as program educational objective is one of the outcome statement that we refer in OBE, but that is an objective statement. Those OBE is recommending to revise on POs maybe after 3 or 4 years of particular batch graduation. It is expected, or it is assumed, we can say, after graduation, the impact of graduation still exists with a student which is graduating and entering into the field for their work as an employee, maybe as a postgraduate student or an entrepreneur, maybe at least first few years. So alumni could be a very good input, could give you a good input for working on revising on POs, if it is there is a need, and what exactly there is a need. So on these two aspects, I can say your recruiters and alumni can help you. These are the issues associated with and program level time frame. As far as institute level, that is institute level vision and mission statement, you can think of maybe 5, 7 or 10 years down the line. That could be a long-term time frame you can think of for revising on or reworking on, redefining on institute level vision and mission statements. So this is what I'm just trying to explain you, what all types of outcome statements are to be defined, what are the levels, how the top-down approach is to be adopted for defining, and how evaluation is happening from bottom to top. The explanation about this will be in detail in some other sessions where we'll be taking some examples in detail and understanding that. Here we are understanding the concept. So in essence, if I can say, the OBE is in education, what matters ultimately is not what is taught, but what students have learned. Therefore, each program we need to formulate intended learning outcome that we should keep in mind. So what these all are essence statements, what I'm just mentioning as essence of OBE. The third statement I'm just making here is what we teach, how we assess, that is assessment of students, ought to be get aligned with the intended learning outcome. That is another important aspect or expectation when you implement OBE concept. The next is the quality of teaching is to be judged by quality of learning that is happening in your institute program level. So what we have just seen right now, the discussion associated with the concept of OBE, where I discussed what is the definition of outcome, what is outcome-based education concept, what all approaches, element approach, standard approach, and process approach, these three approaches we have seen. We understood why there is a need of implementing OBE, what is the advantage of OBE. After that, we have understood what all phases in which outcome-based education is to be seen, what all phases we need to work for. And at the end, we have seen type and level of outcomes. So I'm very sure you must have got some basic idea of outcome-based education means what and what is the way you can realize. In further sessions, we will understand each point, each aspect, each approach in detail with example, which will help you to understand, to get more clarity, more understanding in detail. Thank you for watching this session. Thank you.